Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Thank you for watching and subscribing to our TND Streams channel. We're going to talk a little bit about Dave Chappelle, comedian extraordinaire. And hey, despite the recent video that I did on Fantano that pissed a lot of people off, I still do hold Dave Chappelle in high regard in general. Like his acting career back in the day, Robin Hood Men in Tights, Half Baked is goated. Chappelle Show is goated. His classic stand-up is goated. I do not, have any ill will generally toward Dave Chappelle. And I even enjoyed Sticks and Stones when it originally came out. But his recent stand-up special, The Closer, didn't so much feel like a stand-up special, to me anyway. To me. It's my personal opinion here. Didn't feel so much like a stand-up special to me as much as it felt like a very ineffectively mounted defense of the last stand-up special while also pushing things, further. And it was just a little odd to me because I've never seen Dave so taken aback by some reaction to his stuff. But, the reception of some of the trans jokes in that special must have really gotten a response that he's been dealing with for a long time, because there were just numerous stories and numerous points of that special where he was talking about getting negative reactions from people on account of that special and on account of the jokes and so on and so forth. And I feel like, if he really doesn't give a shit, he certainly had the option to say, look, sorry, not sorry. I'm moving on. I'm doing other things. I'm not focusing on this. My whole career does not, amount to some of the jokes I made in this special. If, they offend you, don't watch. But instead of doing that, he's like trying to, almost like a defense lawyer, try to argue that what people are seeing and hearing and interpreting is not what they're seeing and hearing and interpreting. And then also doubling down on the attitudes and the ideas that people are seeing and hearing and interpreting that are making them upset, and not really happy with the results of it. And I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly why he's having a difficult time threading this needle. Is it because he is a Gen Xer and he's not used to living in an era where the audience can respond back? The groups of people who, you're inciting the anger of can then ridicule you and critique you on the internet and in person if they happen to run across you because of jokes that you've made. I don't know, but maybe this new clip that he's put up on his Instagram page where he kind of additionally comments on all of this will bring more to light. Let's give it a watch and see exactly what he has to say.
It's been said in the press that I was invited to speak to the transgender employees at Netflix, and I refused. That is not true. If they had invited me, I would have accepted it, although I am confused about what we are speaking about. I said what I said, and boy, I heard what you said. My God, how could I not? You said you want a safe working environment at Netflix. Well, it seems like I'm the only one that can't go to the office anymore.
Okay, just to kind of comment on that part first. You are famous, world famous, multi-millionaire comedian Dave Chappelle. If you wanted to really go down to Netflix, I'm sure the CEO, if he wanted to, could take you up some elevator or something so you can go around the peons and, make your way to the top floor or whatever. When Dave would go to Netflix, I don't know if he would just kind of, I mingle with, the tech guys and, hang out with the people doing the social media, stuff. I have no idea. But, the pores, all that stuff. It just sort of seems a little pretentious of him to say that. Plus, on top of it, like you're not an employee of Netflix. You're just kind of contracted to give them content, every once in a while. You're not in the office every day doing a 9 to 5 at Netflix. So let's continue. He does seem like he's drinking a little bit here. I mean, not because he's literally drinking, but he does seem a little buzzed.
I want everyone in this audience to know that even though the media frames this, that it's me versus that community, that is not what it is.
Hey, thank you for the raid.
Do not blame the LGBTQ community for any of this shit. This has nothing to do with them.
Wait, well, hold on. Let me.
LGBTQ community for any. Do not blame the LGBTQ.
The LBGT, that he is definitely a little buzzed.
Community for any of this shit. This has nothing to do with them. It's about corporate interests and what I can say and what I cannot say.
Okay, well, okay. A couple of things. It's about corporate interests. Like, what is the corporate interest in you doing what? Like, I don't understand. What's the corporate interest? What corporate? Netflix is a corporation. Netflix is a corporation that has paid you tens of millions of dollars to not only put out Sticks and Stones, but come out with The Closer, which had content in it knowingly. You know, they released content that had kind of, you know, in nature pissed off people from Sticks and Stones. So I'm just like, what corporations don't want you saying what you're saying? You're here probably in a venue where you've sold a lot of tickets to, you're getting paid very handsomely to say what you feel like saying. You're saying it, you're doing it. There's an audience for what you're saying. When you stop somewhere to say something and you sell tickets, most likely you're going to be able to say it. You'll be saying it. Is there an LGBTQ corporation that is against your ability to say what you feel like saying? I don't, you know, this just seems a little slapped together, honestly. Are there platforms out there that don't want to, you know, I guess like showcase that sort of trans-based humor that, you know, you've been engaging with in your specials? Yeah, probably, because, you know, it wouldn't look good on them. It might be a little controversial, might tick off the wrong people, but I mean, that's their option. That's their choice. I mean, you know, nobody's throwing you in jail for saying what you're saying, but on top of the, you know, so again, that's free speech. But on top of that, like, you know, corporations don't owe you or me or anybody else like a platform or time or a special. You know, nobody's paying me to fucking do a Netflix special to talk about albums I'm nerding out over. Like, nobody owes me that. If somebody chooses to pay me for that, that's great, but I'm not entitled to that. Especially when, you know, in the case of Dave, like, you're a world-renowned entertainer. You know, your popularity hinges entirely on how much the audience at large loves you. And if you're doing and saying things that makes the audience not like you so much, I mean, that's the risk that you take as an entertainer. You know what I mean? I'm thinking of, you know, what Dave is saying here. And, you know, while I understand that as a result of what he's saying, you know, he's not being allowed or being invited to every platform and to, you know, every format. Like, sure, yes, that's true. But like, bro, you're not Lenny Bruce. Like, you're not doing, you know, blue humor and being put in jail for it. You know what I mean? It's not the same thing. It's, you know, I get that you're getting a reaction for some of the things that you're saying, a negative reaction. But it's not the same thing. And furthermore, sorry to pause it again, but furthermore, like, if Dave was going to make this point, I wish he would further, I guess, like, illustrate maybe to his fans and his followers that maybe they don't need to spend their time online going to war with people in the LGBTQ community. If what if what he feels here, hey, thank you for the subs, appreciate it. If what he feels here is genuinely what he feels, and it's not a me versus the LGBTQ community thing, it's a me versus corporations thing. If that's what you feel, if that's what it is, hey, like, list out the corporations. Who are the corporations? Send your fans after them instead of them, you know, flooding the Instagram page of like a lesbian comic or whatever. Like, come on.
For the record, and I need you to know this, everyone I know from that community has been nothing but loving and supporting. So I don't know what all this nonsense is about. To the transgender community, I am more than willing to give you an audience, but you will not summon me. I am not bending to anybody's demands.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we want to dive into this, but in terms of the formal demands that the trans employees and then the employees who have been walking out at Netflix over the Chappelle special goes, none of those demands are directly at Dave Chappelle. And none of those demands actually include removing the closer or any Chappelle material from Netflix. They're actually not even demanding that, the special go down. Like, of course, are there trans people out there on Twitter or wherever where, you can probably find them saying like, hey, fuck that special, I want it down. Like, yeah, sure. You could find anybody with any fucking opinion. That's not special. But in terms of like this very prominent, very, they have quite a bit of visibility as a result of, the efforts that they're undergoing here. The employees at Netflix who have literal demands of the company, they're not so much asking for the shutting down of Chappelle as much as they're asking for, we want you to also invest in content that depicts LGBTQ people, platforms LGBTQ people. We want LGBT directors, and we want, people who are, of this community making programming decisions and that sort of thing. Like, you can Google the demands of, that group of people yourself. They're on The Verge. But, none of them include Dave Chappelle must bend to our demands. Like, they're not asking for that. At least the Netflix employees anyway, who have made literally demands of the company. And again, one of those demands is not, we want Dave Chappelle to disappear from the platform, no more the closer. That's not a thing that they're asking for. So.
And if you want to meet with me, I'd be more than willing to, but I have some conditions. I desperately want people to see this movie, but I understand why investors would be nervous since nobody will.
I think they cut out a clip because that's the point at which he said that you have to watch my special all the way through and you have to meet me where I want you to meet me and you have to admit that Hannah Gadsby isn't funny or whatever, which, I think a lot of people have seen the special. I saw the special. I watched the special all the way through. I watched the special as a fan who liked Sticks and Stones. And then after I was done with it, I had to think like, was Sticks and Stones actually good? If you had to spend an hour explaining it. But yeah, I feel like that was just kind of silly because those demands presume that everyone critiquing the specials is just like ignorant and they're not really listening to Dave, which isn't entirely true. You have to, admit or acknowledge that out of the thousands of people that are critiquing you, like some of them have to have fucking seen it. Are you kidding me? So that's one. Two, the fact that he's kind of like setting the terms of what this meeting is going to be also communicates to me and probably anybody else in that community that like he wants to be in a position, he wants to be in a place where he's comfortable and he can guide the conversation and he can decide what the flow of it and the tone of it is, which, doesn't say to me that he's going to be in a place where he's prepared to actually listen to the grievances of this community. If they're even really all that interested in meeting with him in the first place, they may not even be. We'll see if, Dave Chappelle sincerely means what he's saying here and actually follows through with some kind of, gathering at some point. I guess we'll see. And as far as the Hannah Gadsby thing, I thought that was kind of tasteless on his part because honestly, like she didn't really talk about you or mention you until the freaking Netflix CEO brought her up, which was a trashy thing on his part to do because he was just like, oh, here's my queer best friend. See, we at Netflix, love the LGBTQ community. Yep. And, she was just kind of negatively reacting to, yeah, sure, the jokes. I think she said that Dave Chappelle's worldview was stunted, which I think was probably about the nicest thing that she could say in in regards to the special. There's a point where during the whole thing where he talks about socking a lesbian in the face. So again, I think that was probably the nicest thing she could say. She didn't go at your talents as a comedian. She certainly didn't say that, Dave Chappelle's never been funny or this, that, or the other thing, because obviously that's patently untrue. And I think would be a little too exaggerated. I think, she kind of kept it on point where it should have been. And once more, like her reaction was more in regards to what the Netflix CEO was saying, not what you said or are saying. So I think to sort of like go at her and just say, well, you're not funny, is just a little tasteless, not entirely necessary. And on top of it, like, is only going to inflame these tensions that are already going on between you and the fucking LGBTQ community. You can't in one breath be like, this beef that the media is talking about, it's not true. It's not there. It's not real. It's me and corporations. But then like a few minutes later or a minute later, you're like, oh, well, hey, this very popular, prominent LGBTQ comedian, they're not funny. You have to admit that they're not funny. Just kind of seems like, honestly, like the Closer special. In one breath, Dave is like, I want you to know that I'm not transphobic and I'm not misogynist and I'm not this and I'm not that. But then he goes on to sort of express, jokes, but opinions come through those jokes that don't really kind of jive with that message. And, look, I understand that certain things can, just be comedy or, you can be disingenuous or be ironic or be satirical, for comedic means and comedic ends. But, I think if that's all it was, I don't think Dave would need an entirely, other comedy special and then an Instagram clip on top of that to continue explaining and explaining and explaining the jokes and explaining himself. Like every time he continues to explain, I feel like he just digs the grave further, and it's not looking great.
Touch it. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will make it available, and you can judge for yourself. But you cannot have this conversation and exclude my voice from it. That is only fair.
Okay. Well, hold on a second.
And exclude my voice from it. You can judge for yourself. I will make it available. But I understand why investors would be nervous. Since nobody will touch it, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will make it available. And you can judge for yourself. But you cannot have this conversation and exclude my voice from it.
Okay. Well, so there's the documentary thing and there's the final point that he's making here. One, you're fucking Dave Chappelle. Millions of people hang on your every word. You have the microphone. Nobody can quell your voice. Like anything that you say on this, especially on this topic, is going to get headlines. This video got hundreds of headlines across the internet. For an entire day, you couldn't Google Hannah Gadsby without seeing Chappelle headlines. So like, again, anything you say on this topic especially is going to get headlines. Nobody's stopping your voice from getting out there. Your voice is out there. Your voice is being amplified by every media outlet trying to clickbait it. It's out there. People are seeing it. You literally put it up on Instagram. Instagram's not preventing you from talking. So again, it just sort of seems like this paranoia in a way, like this paranoia that I'm not going to be allowed to speak, that I'm going to be stopped from speaking. Like you're speaking, you're talking. You're just not used to the idea that people are talking back and are not happy with the things that you're saying. So there's that. And then there's the other thing with the documentary. Look, I mean, I posted this up on Instagram, but to kind of double down here on it, like you said at one point that if this is what being canceled is, I love it. This is great. Well, with that has come the reality that, maybe certain outlets or, industry, people don't want to platform your documentary now because the topic and your brand are a little too hot. Are there platforms out there like Netflix that may still want to work with you? Yeah, sure, probably. But like maybe not every outlet is going to want to. Maybe some doors are going to close because you decided to, hey, you know, you know what this is? This is an episode, or this is I guess an installment of when keeping it real goes wrong. This is pretty much just a Chappelle episode. He's literally just subjecting us to a literal IRL Chappelle episode where keeping it real does in fact go wrong. And Chappelle is look, I think he's being very real and being very authentic about his genuine opinion on these issues. Do I think that he has, personally, individually, do I think Dave Chappelle has, like, you know, any real or serious hatred to trans people or, you know, lesbian people or women and so on and so forth? No, I don't think Dave has a deep-seated hatred, you know, for these people, but I think he feels entitled to be able to, you know, mock them, you know, to his own benefit. And, you know, maybe he does sort of like see their situation and their plight is maybe a little funny because he can't directly relate to it in some respects. And, you know, on top of that, I do think there are some passages of his special that are not very funny because they're not supposed to be, where he's making, you know, this genuine but very bad argument, kind of posing LGBTQ issues as like a white thing, which is like, you know, against, working against or in opposition to or getting in the way of progress on black issues. And he presents like this gaining of rights by various marginalized groups as like a zero-sum game. And that's not the case. And he neglects to really acknowledge the overlaps where, you know, queerness, being a member of the LGBTQ community overlaps with race. You know, he doesn't really acknowledge the fact that negative attitudes toward people of different sexual orientations harms that much more people who are of races that are already being marginalized in society. So he doesn't really kind of go into that. He mostly kind of, you know, portrays concern and I guess cancellation over these discussions about the LGBTQ community, jokes about the LGBTQ community as like a white thing, and that's not entirely true. Thank you very much for watching this clip on TND Streams. To see more, subscribe to the channel and also click on the video link next to my head. Also, make sure to check out our other YouTube channels linked down below to see everything else we do week to week. And yeah, that's it. Anthony Fantano, forever.